everyone, how are you? Can you just raise your hands if you were here last time I was here? Okay, great. So I know if I have to kind of, rebrief or something. So I included a couple handouts this time. One handout has a little bit of the descriptions regarding the vape products and the differences between that and the cigarette. The main difference is a cigarette is an electronic, as we discussed before. Everything else, as you can see here, I wanted to give you guys a clear picture. Everything else is cosmetic. The color, obviously, the fact that they don't need to keep rebuying a pack of cigarettes. It's an individual device that can be recharged. They do have disposable items. I did bring some examples of some of the devices. So I have my coworker over there, Lacey. Yeah, sure. Why don't you just pass it around now since we're on that topic? Yeah, I have a disposable electronic cigarette, and I just wanted you guys to see how very similar to a cigarette it looks. So they want to mimic the cigarette. Mostly, obviously, because people are addicted to smoking cigarettes. Are they addicted to the nicotine? Yes, but they are also addicted to the habit of, seeing this object, the color of it, putting it to their mouth, lighting it up, seeing the light. That is also part of their addiction, those habits. So the disposable electronic cigarette, it smells like a cigarette. It is this one that we have here is menthol. That's like the flavor. It When you puff it, it does have a LED light that glows the same way that a cigarette would. So it's mimicking a cigarette to the T. So you can see why a teen who would pick up, or a minor, pick up an electronic cigarette would go ahead and try cigarettes after possibly using that. Which teens are using these electronic cigarettes before they've tried an actual cigarette, or they have been smoking and are both using the electronic cigarette and the tobacco cigarette. I included other pictures of a vape pen. I have a vape pen going around. This is a cheaper version. There are very expensive versions of vape pens and vape mods that are sold. And teens can, as we discussed before, purchase them online simply by saying they're older than 18, by clicking on a number saying they're 21, changing the year, the date of birth that they are, and it gets mailed right to their home or their friend's house, or possibly where they work, or anywhere else that they can receive mail. And the other difference is price. So besides the cosmetic, it's pricing. So there is no other differences between using a electronic cigarette, vape pen, vape mod. Even though it looks bigger, it's just going to create a little bit more smoke if it's bigger. And the reason that teens or others, individuals who like vaping, they like the smoke, they like doing tricks, they like the amount that they're using at once. Other than that, you're still getting the same type of chemicals that you're smoking. If you're smoking the e-liquid, you possibly can put other substances, which is another concern we have. And in the back of that handout for the vape products and cigarettes, I put the concerns in the back. So those are all the main concerns we spoke about regarding vaping. Why are we concerned about it? Well, the youth are exposed to it in all these ads. They're unregulated. They're exposed to it in the same way that they once were and still are exposed to tobacco products. So if there are regulations for tobacco products, which minors are not able to purchase, there needs to be some type of regulation going on for these electronic cigarettes and vape mods and vape pens, which there's not. So they're easily accessible for them. Also, as you can see, there's a lot of statistics that I was able to get for you guys from the Center of Disease Control and Prevention. It's a common tobacco product that teens and youth are using. So if they're using these electronic cigarettes, it's more than likely that they will pick up actual cigarettes or marijuana products, which we know these industries are all sort of working together. So is there any other questions that you guys have that maybe you didn't get to ask last time, or something I don't know, that you're, maybe is not explained thoroughly for you, or did everyone get a chance to see it? There's an oil that was going around too, and that's what goes with the vape pen.
Very nice.
Yes.
You put the oil in here?
Yes. It smells like candy, right? Yeah, the oil. Another thing that I wanted to point out is that when I went to go purchase it, it's very similar to like bartending. When a bartender says, "Oh, what do you want?" and they have different bottles of flavors. So, they're making it very attractive, very appealing, very trendy. So it's no wonder that the kids and the youth are, drawn to it. And you actually can choose the amount of nicotine that you want in it. So yes, you can have no nicotine in the oil if you purchase it at a store. If you're purchasing it online and they ask you, which a lot of the websites don't, it automatically includes nicotine, which we know is addictive, and for an adolescent's brain development is not good, since they're not fully developed. But so basically, if you're going into a store, they're going to ask you, do you want 0 to 24 milligrams of nicotine, which you can choose if you want to put that in these oils. And I don't know if anyone got a chance to smell it, but it smells like candy. It's a berry scented. I can't see a cigarette smelling that way, and why anyone would want a cigarette to smell that way. And I can just see why, the teens are being attracted to it. It's something it's like appealing very to kids, very much to kids.
Could we see them?
Yeah,
Oh, you didn't see them? Oh, okay.
Sorry.
So yeah, I just wanted to, yes.
Part of my ignorance, but I wasn't here.
Oh, okay. No problem.
All of these, I take it you have to be, person has to be 18 or
Yes,
older.
all of them you should be. That's what they say. But because there are no regulations really to them besides the 18 or older, online they are able to purchase them. So there's no other way to say whether or not they are really actually 18 or not. They're available, abundantly online. There's hundreds and hundreds and thousands of websites that you can go to.
Is there any indication how prevalent the use of these are by teenagers in our community, or young people in our community?
Well, yeah, I mean, as far as detailed within our community, there aren't any specific statistics. Personally, my own personal perspective, I have been in schools within the community speaking on this topic, and all the kids know what it is. And I've asked, have you tried it, or know someone who has, and they raise their hands. So we know that they are trying it. Also in social media, they're using them, which we will discuss a little bit in the presentation. Exactly. So that's how we know that it's within the community as well. So I put the main concerns regarding the the vaping in the back, and hopefully you guys can kind of keep that as motivation of what you're trying to address in your community. Why you should feel passionately about this being an issue with the teens and the youth. And as far as adults using it, there's still not enough information to tell whether it's safe. There's still a lot of studies that need to be conducted, and a lot of studies that need to be conducted to tell whether it does help quit smoking in general at all. So, all right, let's, yes, sure.
A lot of the teens that I have mentioned this to, they're like, oh, it's no big deal.
Yes,
And I'm like, what? Yeah, it is a big deal.
yeah,
They're like, it's not harmful like if you was regularly smoking cigarettes.
right,
And I'm trying to figure out how to get that in their mind that, yeah, it is harmful.
yeah. Well, we're gonna go through this presentation, and I will say the best way to do that would be to first educate them about the tobacco industry. Let them know how far we've come with that. Let them know that they are privileged because they live in a generation where they can have information on the television, not the facts, not just, the glamorous side where you look cool holding a cigarette, but they have anti-smoking commercials in their face all the time. They have the internet at the palm of their hands, and if they wanted to find legit resources regarding the negative, consequences with tobacco, nicotine, the addiction, they can receive it. Whereas years ago, we couldn't. So kids were smoking or people were smoking at a very young age because we didn't have the knowledge then. And the marketing industry was selling it directly to us. But now they're privileged, so they need to see, that there were tobacco companies that were sued for marketing directly to children, and they have admitted to it, and that these people, there are people who've died because of this, and they need to know that this is similar. Mm-hmm.
Basically, they're doing it again.
Correct.
Different products, then you're marketing at the same time. So the reason why they know tobacco causes lung cancer is because of previous generations being marketed to that it's healthy, it's cool, it's the right thing to do. And now again, do you want to be that statistic? Ask them. Do you want to be that one person that finds that it causes lung cancer or some other kind of ailment inside your mouth?
Right. I mean, that's the best way. History is repeating itself, and they can't argue with the facts. After that, one thing I always say to them is, when you choose to pick up a cigarette, it's ultimately your decision, because you have a little bit of both. You have a little bit of the facts of what the negative consequences are, and then you do have, unfortunately, the glamorous side to smoking tobacco and them thinking that it's a cool thing to do, but they need to work with the facts, and that is that it's causing, diseases, and it's not helping them at all. So hopefully maybe doing it that way, they can get the bigger picture of this.
I have printed out actually the last one that you had, I showed it to a few of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wouldn't recommend showing, I did this handout specifically for adults. I wouldn't show it to the youth because it may seem like, oh wait, I could get more smoke out of a vape mod than my e-cigarette, but we're a mature audience here, and I really wanted you to know, because I don't want you to think like, oh wait, this is only for synthetics, and this is, no. All damage can be done with all of these devices, whether it's $10 or $150. So I really just wanted to paint that picture for you guys and see that it's all about the money. They just want a way to charge a higher price. And they're going to do that by adding a little bit more lights, a little bit more smoke, a little bit more mirrors. That's it. Anything else? Yes.
I think one of the things might be good that Linda and Kelly in Washington see if there's resources available now about this. I remember last year there were conversations about the e-cigarettes and the vape culture, but there weren't resources yet. There wasn't, from the CDC or the other resources that are available through, CACA and SAMHSA. So maybe they have that now, where we could have the literature that are similar to what's available for cigarettes, marijuana, heroin, and so forth. Make that part of our toolkit.
Yeah.
After the schools and after the events we go to.
Yeah, all the information I got here is from the CDC. So, I mean, that is very helpful. I think they do have a PowerPoint that you guys could probably go over. It talks more about the marketing and how it's increasing, the youth to go out and purchase and use of these products. That's mainly what it focuses on. I'm sure there will continue to be more as they go. So that's definitely.
Parents, and the community members seem to like those takeaways that they can take with them, from the events, and if there's something to that, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe there's something that you can develop for your, the coalition, for our community here. And I say our because I live in Middletown. So. Okay, so let me get started here with the presentation. It does have more on vaping, so. Okay, so let me get started here with the presentation. It does have more on vaping, so. I'm not going to spend too much time on vaping since we kind of did that, and it could turn into a whole day of sitting here and talking about everything. But feel free to raise your hand if you have questions. I'd rather you ask me now than forget anything that you have on your mind. So we're going to talk a little bit about the e-cigarettes, vape pens, and hookahs, where synthetic drugs have come from, how are these drugs legal, who's using them, identifying the names and new synthetic drugs. When I say names, I mean the nicknames or the street names, recognizing the symptoms after using synthetic drugs, recognizing the paraphernalia that is used with each drug, dangers of using these synthetic drugs, and what are we doing as a state to prevent the use. Okay, so we talked about vape culture. You know that the vape culture consists of smoking an e-cigarette, a vape pen, it does have, the nicotine in them, tobacco products. Because of these new products, tobacco products have increased in sales, and they are actually sold more than the actual cigarette among youth. But even amongst adults, they are being bought more. You guys have seen vape shops, around, right, in Middletown, and they're even called vape shops and lounges. So you can go there and vape and smoke there with whoever works there. So all these devices they have cartridges which holds this e-liquid in them. The concerns that we have is that you can also put other substances besides this e-liquid that does contain nicotine, which is also addictive, and these other chemicals in the e-liquid that have been found to have other toxic chemicals in them. So I passed around the e-cigarette. Now that one was disposable, so it has about 300 puffs. That's what it's marketed as. So you can get 300 puffs out of that disposable cigarette that I passed around. There are multiple brands that will advertise more puffs, that will advertise longer use. There are other cigarettes that you can recharge and refill the cartridge with liquid of different flavors. And you can see here, there's a chamber here that will have smoke. There's an LED light that will light up when you inhale. And then there's a tip. It looks exactly like a cigarette for a reason, because it needs to mimic the cigarette so you feel as if you're smoking a cigarette. Okay, so as we know, the FDA Center has not really done research to approve e-cigarettes as a safe or effective method to actually quit smoking. So we may know someone who says, well, I've quit smoking, and suddenly they're smoking this electronic cigarette. So in all actuality, they have not quit smoking, especially if they're still smoking with nicotine in it. They're smoking a substance even without the nicotine, so they are still smoking and putting toxic chemicals in their body regardless. The other concern with these products is that it's normalizing nicotine addiction, and it's making it trendy to smoke again, which we've come a long way to get, especially kids, to say no, don't pick up a cigarette, it's not worth it, you're going to get cancer, you're going to get a disease. And now we have this new product who's kind of like making the younger generation forget all that we've taught them about that, and they're starting to say yes more, and put these things in their book bags, smoking them indoors, and then they have no regulations on them, which is making it hard to control the use. The other thing about these devices is the concealment method, which I did put in the handout that I gave you. Just to remind you about it, the concealment method is basically smoking. You can smoke marijuana or any other substance, including the oils, indoors without anyone realizing it. So that's also what's making it very popular. Unless you do know what it is, it can look like a pen if you're in school. They can be very slim, as you see in the picture, and you may not realize that it's actually a smoking device. It's not so much like a big device such as a hookah that you see that's blue there. That you can't, it's too big to bring in anywhere without anyone noticing. So the fact that you can put these devices in your pocket is also what makes it very popular. I would also like to talk about the vitamin electronic cigarette. I think I mentioned this last time, but for those of you who weren't here, these companies, since they're not regulated at all, they don't have to keep their word. So they can say we are putting certain chemicals within our product, and they're actually not. So this company here is saying that the person who purchased this product is smoking vitamins. It's called Vitamin Electronic Cigarette. And what's actually interesting is the CEO of the company was addressed and asked, why are you advertising that these customers are smoking vitamins? And he said, oh, well, we don't call ourselves Vitamin Electronic Cigarette because someone's smoking vitamins. We call it because vitamin means Latin, is Latin for life. So we're not trying to insinuate that someone is smoking vitamins. It's just the name that we came up with. We're just like any other electronic cigarette brand. We have a name. I don't see what's so bad about it. And so there you see yourself. Imagine someone who's trying to live a healthy lifestyle might take this advertising seriously and think that they're causing no harm to their body. They're actually making a healthy decision, and they go out and purchase something like this. Even someone who's trying to quit smoking and have a healthier lifestyle. So that's one example of false advertisement. We spoke briefly about social media and the internet. So is everyone in the room familiar with social media and Snapchat and these social media programs that you can have like short videos, maybe 10-second, 15-second, sometimes 8 seconds of video. So they're putting videos of themselves or their peers smoking these devices or other things, and they're doing like smoking tricks with them, hashtagging, vape life or vape culture, and again, making it very trendy where people are able to see this in the public. So some facts here that I have, which we were talking about getting some more facts regarding, I encourage you guys as a coalition, maybe you guys can run a survey to see what's going on in your community. We had someone here ask, do we know if this is an issue in our community? It definitely is, but if you guys wanted to be more specific about it, you could run a survey and see if, the kids will actually put out there that they are using it, and maybe, get some more information to put out there so they know that there are more negative consequences. So some of what we found here from the National Youth Tobacco Survey, as you can see, the e-cigarette there's been a rise of the use of it. It went from 4.7% in 2011 to 10% in 2012. And the survey also showed that students using e-cigarettes within the past 30 days rose from 1.5% to 2.8%. And it also doubled amongst middle school students, not just high school students. So altogether in 2012, more than 1.78 million middle and high school students nationwide had tried e-cigarettes. So the study also found that 76.3% of middle and high school students who used e-cigarettes within the past 30 days also smoked conventional cigarettes in the same period. So if they're not saying no to actual cigarettes, then this device isn't helping. As we can see, no matter what the companies are saying, this can help you quit, it's better that your teen smokes this than an actual cigarette because there are less chemicals in it. Chemicals are chemicals, and if they're toxic and are not supposed to be in your body, you're going to have a negative effect. And that's the information that needs to be out there. Findings from the 2014 Youth Tobacco Survey show that the e-cigarette use also rose. So among high school students, there was an increase from 4.5% in 2013 to 13.4% in 2014. So we have about 2 million students smoking, and among the middle school students, current e-cigarette use more than tripled from 1.1% in 2013 to 3.9% in 2014. And that's not that many years that this product has been out. So that's a lot of students who are minors, and we're only talking about minors. We're not talking about the adults who are going to these vape shops. The vape company or vape industry is worth $2 billion today. Hookah smoking roughly doubled for middle and high school students, while cigarette use declined among high school students and remained unchanged for middle school students. So middle school students are still using these conventional cigarettes. High school students are possibly putting them down because we know that a lot of high school students were smoking cigarettes. And the reason I think that why some of the high school students are continuing to smoke cigarettes is not because they don't know the negative effects, is because when they are battling with smoking marijuana and trying to stop, they know that marijuana you can be tested for, which cigarettes not so much. So unless you smell it or you find a pack of it on them as a parent or someone who's checking up on them, so they choose to kind of wean off the marijuana with cigarettes. And in 2014, the products most commonly used, which this is very interesting. So in 2014, the tobacco products most commonly used were the e-cigarette, then the hookah, then cigarettes, then cigars, which we know cigars are also used to used for marijuana blunt wraps. So I haven't seen many teens smoke cigars, so I'm sure that's the case why they're being purchased. And then we have smokeless tobacco and snus and pipes. So as you see, these devices haven't been around that many years, but they're the #1 purchase item. Okay, so now we're getting to the synthetic drugs. So does anyone have any questions about anything I just said about the vape culture or the vape products? No? Okay. So why these go hand in hand is because the other concern is that these devices can be used with other substances, such as synthetics. Synthetics are man-made designer drugs. They're created in a laboratory, whether it's legal, meaning, through a grant with the government, and this formula has come about and illegally put into the street and sold because it mimics another drug. Or it is made in a laboratory that's man-made as well, illegally in someone's garage or hotel room. It could be made as long as someone is messing with chemicals. So there are new synthetics and there are old synthetics. So the newer synthetics, the concern about that is also they are not regulated. They are not scheduled drugs. They may mimic old drugs or old synthetics that we know about, but because we don't know much about them, it's hard sometimes to track what's in their system, one. The person may not know they're smoking synthetics when they're using it or purchasing it, and they're killing people. Since they're so powerful and contain these very toxic, deadly chemicals, they're killing people, causing them to be very aggressive and very violent with others. So we're going to talk about a couple synthetic drugs. If we talked about all of them, again, we could be here forever, but we're going to talk about the ones that are popular, that are on the street, and also the fact that synthetic drugs are actually called now novel psychoactive substances. So if you hear anyone talk about novel psychoactive substances, they are mainly talking about synthetic drugs. They do that because synthetic drugs, the name of synthetic, for some reason they think it wasn't doing justice to what these drugs are, and so scientists want to go with novel psychoactive. So these are basic signs and symptoms that one will have when they do a synthetic drug. Every drug could be slightly different, but if you see someone with any of these symptoms, poison control can be called. Obviously, they should be taken to the hospital right away. And you can see, even the less severe symptoms, it's something to be concerned about. Okay, so synthetic marijuana or fake marijuana is one category. They do not want to use the name fake marijuana or synthetic marijuana, mainly because it does not have marijuana in it at all. Marijuana that has chemicals mixed in with it or another drug mixed in with it is called laced marijuana. And what synthetic marijuana actually is just dried up herbs with deadly chemicals sprayed on them. So some of the street names include Spice, K2, Gold, Spice Silver, Spice Diamond. Obviously these names can be made up at any day. Maybe within our own community they have their own names that we don't know, that they don't share worldwide or anything, but they have their own community name for it. So a lot of the kids who do know about it had popular names that they know that were purchased within like gas stations, convenience stores. They put cartoon characters on these packages, packaging up like incense, or it looks almost like it could be like a fruit snacks, and it's called Scooby Snacks or something with a cartoon character to appeal to kids. It does have not for human consumption on these packages. It's not packaged all the same way. So even though it does have the warning on it, and even though we do know of certain brands, what they do is every time we come about, okay, someone's smoking this, it's very dangerous, they remove the product, they spray it with different chemicals, repackage it, and put a different cartoon character or whatever slogan they want to put on it, and they can resell it. And because it's not regulated and because they do have the warning there for not for human consumption, they're able to get away with selling these synthetic drugs. So New York State does know about this. We have PSA announcements that play. Have any of you seen the PSA announcement for New York State? And it talks about synthetic drugs and how it's mimicking marijuana, but it's not, and how it's very deadly. So yes, they are putting awareness, out there. They have made a couple laws that if these drugs mimic other drugs, they are able to, press charges against anyone they know who are selling them, and also to ban these certain chemicals. But again, there are thousands and thousands of chemicals out there. All they have to do is, think of a new chemical to spray, and there you go. Until we find out what's on it, there's no way to ban those chemicals until, unfortunately, something happens. Someone uses it, someone goes to the hospital, and is tested for what's in their system. So I also posted here the different types of paraphernalia that can be used. You have the vape pens there, and those they can be bought as far as cheap as $10. They're rechargeable, so it's appealing to people because they don't have to continue buying maybe blunt wraps or the papers to roll up marijuana in.
Rechargeable.
Mhm.
Plug them in and it does what?
In a wall, and it charges the battery.
So how long does a pen last?
2 to 3 hours. And there are pens that are more expensive that will last longer, so that's why they have these devices that can be hundreds of dollars sometimes.
Tell me you can plug them into your computer?
Oh, anything that will charge it, yeah. It's like a cell phone. You know how you could plug a cell phone charger and charge your cell phone for a bit? Yes. And here are the side effects that you will see that come from using synthetic marijuana. They can be similar to marijuana. Of course, we haven't heard of someone smoking marijuana one time and just dying because of the marijuana use. There are numerous deaths because of a one-time use of smoking synthetic marijuana. So that's the main concern. You don't have a chance to explain to the teens if they don't know, or an adult, that it's out there, or to be careful. Unless they're a scientist, they can't tell if it's actual marijuana or this thing that's mimicking it, or they sell to look like it, and they're dying from it. So if you do think someone has smoked it or may have it in their system, you should call poison control. And there have been calls to poison control. In 2015, actually, there were about 6,949 exposures to synthetic cannabinoids, and those were the calls made that people were affected by poisoning of synthetic marijuana. There are also a lot of cases you can look up regarding adults and youth who have tried synthetic marijuana and are disabled right now. They're in a coma, they can't talk, they've lost their ability to speak or walk. So there's great, powerful stories out there too that you can read on and share with anyone that you feel doesn't take it, as a severe situation like you were saying. The next category is synthetic stimulants. These drugs mimic drugs such as ecstasy or MDMA. So ecstasy and MDMA are the old synthetic drugs. These new ones are mimicking them. They're supposed to be new and improved, sort of like. The bath salts are a stimulant. As you can see in the picture, the bath salts can be sniffed. They can be broken down. They can also be placed into the vape pens or electronic devices. It could be in pill form. They can be injected. There's a pacifier there on that picture. The pacifier is because they grind their teeth, and it's a party drug, so they're trying to protect themselves. So these are all signs that you want to look for, finding a pacifier. Obviously, if your son or daughter or youth that has a baby brother or sister, maybe you don't want to jump to conclusions. But these are all little signs. Even lollipops, they dance with lollipops in their mouth, and it can also even be put onto a candy or a different form of food. Mhm.
How are these dried substances used in the pens?
They have to heat them up, and then they would extract the liquid and put it in.
Heat 'em up. What do they mix it with?
Water, yeah.
Water?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so this here is other paraphernalia, I guess you can say, or it also encourages anyone, not just teens, unfortunately, for these drugs. It says missing. Have you seen Molly? So Molly is also in the same category as these drugs, and this shirt is for sale. The bottom there, I don't know if you can read it, says she makes me want to dance. So it's a party drug. They use it to go out and stay up all night and dance all night. And these are the symptoms that come with the drug, including death. They are going to sweat a lot, vomit. They're going to have panic attacks, hallucinations, severe hallucinations. So that can also lead to suicidal thoughts. And since it's a party drug, they were not going to go to sleep, so staying up for long periods of time is a big sign. Okay, this is a recently new popular synthetic. It's called Flocka. Has anyone heard of it? There was a lot of reportings on it on television and YouTube in Florida. For some reason, there was a huge epidemic with it in Florida, but there has been cases here, of course, in New York, and it's just a synthetic drug. It comes from China. It elevates your blood pressure. It's known as Flocka or gravel. You also have hallucinations, paranoia, high body temperature. Most of the time that people have been seen on the drug, they're very aggressive. They become so hot they strip their clothes off. They're described as zombie-like because they get so violent they try to bite the police enforcement or whoever tries to restrain them down, or rip their face off, or very, very intense stuff. They can stay awake for days, and they describe the feeling of being on the drug as having an exceptional strength without apparent fatigue. The officers even have special equipment that they use when they try to restrain someone that they know may be on this drug because of the way they've been so aggressive. Okay, so here are some facts that I thought would be good for you to see here. So we have the number of national crime lab reports for MDMA and synthetic cathinones. So this is what the police is reporting that are found upon these cases. So when they find people with these drugs or situations where these drugs are available, as you see, there's an increase of the synthetic drugs. So if there's an increase of synthetic drugs out there, that's more of a chance that one does not know the difference between the synthetic and another drug that they may normally be taking. Not that I should say, stick to the drug you've always been taking, but there's a danger when you take something or too much of something, especially when you don't know what it is.
Is this self-reported by the person who's using the drugs? Because there's no test for this kind of stuff.
No, these are they're lab reports, so they were tested. So if they could have found the drugs maybe in a drug raid and they've tested it to see what the drugs are. And most of these drugs are known as synthetics, not as the actual MDMA. The other graph here is the emergency department visits involving bath salts. Bath salts was and is a popular synthetic. So 52% of those visits were individuals who had bath salts and other drugs. So it was a combination of other drugs in their system. 33% of them had only bath salts in their system, and 15% had bath salts and a mixture of either marijuana or synthetic marijuana in their system. So in the middle, there it's 33%. So meaning these people actually know they are using bath salts because they're only putting that in their system. That's a high percentage. Then we have the top drugs among 8th through 12th graders within the past year. So marijuana, as we know, is very popular amongst that generation. Then we have, they're both, marijuana is illegal, so it's still popular even though it's illegal and not prescribed. We have inhalants, and then we have synthetic marijuana amongst the 8th graders and the 12th graders. Adderall is prescribed, so even though it is prescribed by a doctor, it's still abused. But if marijuana is the most used drug amongst this age group and synthetic is the third most used, that means there's more of a chance, once again, that these marijuana users can use synthetic marijuana without realizing it. Then we have synthetic hallucinogens. You can also take this as a tablet or capsule. It can also come in liquid form, or they can make it into liquid form. It's a synthetic PCP. It mimics the effects of LSD. It also causes hallucinations. They also have street names for it. The most common street name is the 25I and the N-bomb. And again, they can sell these synthetics in a convenience store, online. It can range from about, well, regular PCP can range from about $5 to $15. These, are selling for about $10, $5 to $10. Here are some of the symptoms of PCP, so you can kind of compare it. PCP also has its street names: angel dust, boat, crystal. It could also be sprayed on leafy material or dipped in liquid and smoke. It can be snorted. So they have MXE, which also mimics PCP, and it is a mind-altering and depression of pain. So it's supposed to be a painkiller. It also has a horse tranquilizer chemical in it. So we give this to horses to put them down, and people are ingesting this into their system. So you can see why it's killing. It is very addictive. And that's the other concern about these synthetic drugs, is we're learning more about them, but until we know everything about them, we know so far that they are addictive. Okay, great. But how can we help people? How can we help them to get off of the drugs until we know more about the drugs? We don't. So unfortunately, there are people who are suffering addicted to these drugs that we're still learning about these chemicals that we're trying to figure out how to, get them off safely without them losing their lives. These are more statistics here. Synthetic drug incidence on the rise. As you can see, the cases involving bath salts have increased. We have here from 2009 to 2011. And then we have the number of psychoactive substances newly reported annually through the European monitoring. So a lot of the synthetic drugs do come from Europe. They know that there's synthetic drugs there, obviously. They keep track of it. So some of these synthetic drugs we have here, we know about them, we know they're here, but some of these we have no idea about. So we can only imagine how many more are going to come about, be on the street, have a new street name, packaged differently, possibly sold within, the convenience stores, or just on the street, or mixed in with other drugs, and we're not going to know until the cases come into the hospital and they're tested.
Are the majority of these drugs produced in Europe and shipped over here, or
Yes.
they're American companies too that are doing this?
I don't. They're not American companies, but not that there's not Americans behind it.
Okay.
But yes, they're mainly from Europe.
I was wondering the cost, like, I know that on the graph we saw that marijuana and, synthetic marijuana, and then it went down. I was wondering, like, I'm not too versed in my drugs,
Mhm.
but, PCP and all these other, like, more designer drugs, and I was wondering what the cost of, do you know, like, the cost of them? Because I know, like, we found out when we had the big heroin symposium, we found out heroin was cheaper than marijuana.
Yeah, most of them are cheaper. The only thing that's about the same is like the synthetic marijuana, and that's only because, one, it's the same packaging, same amounts that you can get, and two, if it is more expensive, is because a drug dealer is raising the price on it because they think it can't be tracked through a drug test. So it's more demanding because if they're trying to, let's say, get a job or hide from their probation officer, they're using these synthetics because we don't know about them. But we do have these drug tests that if we know what we're looking for, it is going to show up.
So even the PCP and the MXC and things like that,
The
they're still-
PCP, no, we test for those. Yeah, they are expensive per se to buy, yes. But if you don't know what you're buying, it's going to be the same price. If you know what you're buying, it's going to be a high price anyway because it's not so much about the price for them, it's about the high.
I just mean like with their youth, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I know like some kids, like, we was explained to us, like, you know, why a lot of gang members and stuff are coming here is because there's more money and less competition. But I was just wondering, like, the average kid, is it cheaper just to go buy a dime bag on the corner and find somebody, or is it cheaper for them to do that versus going and trying to find these different?
For the newer synthetics, yeah, for the newer synthetics, it is going to be cheaper because they need more people to use it so they can get the word out that it's cheaper and that it's getting them high. And it's not going to be just for kids; it's going to be for adults too. Yeah. Any other questions? I had the PSA announcement here that some of you guys said you saw, so I wanted to share it, but we don't have Wi-Fi. But I encourage you to go on YouTube and look up the New York State Oasis Synthetic Public Awareness announcement.
They've been showing it around football games and, you know, the
Great.
sporting events, games, and
Yep.
TV. But I've seen quite a few times. I've seen
Okay. Yeah, I've seen it a lot too, but I don't know if I notice it just because I'm around this stuff all day. I always wonder, do people actually notice this? So that's good to hear. But yes, look at it, share it, and again, this information you can look at it, look it up yourself. It even provides the announcement, a website. And you can look up, more stuff about synthetic drugs. There's also, I got a question the other day about fentanyl, and it's the opiate that mimics heroin, or it could be mixed in to make it more potent. That's a synthetic, yes, but it is still scheduled. So since we know about it, it's a danger, but we know about it. So if someone's caught with it or someone's using it, it's regulated in a way. So
They prescribe it in that.
yes, they prescribe it. So it's illegally used, obviously, which are a lot of drugs. But we know about it, so we know how to handle it. With these other drugs, the reason why it's so much more severe is it's scary to think we don't know what's in the system, and we're just coming to know about all these chemicals and how to handle it. So, and the fentanyl also can be used with the Narcan. Any other questions? Okay, well, that is it. I thank you for your time.